I'd like to welcome Martin Nichols and Scott Dummett, sorry. Welcome. Right, first thing is apologies.
Yes, Chair, we have apologies from Paxton Hood-Williams.
Right, and also I had an apologies from Phil Downing.
Okay, thank you.
Any disclosures of personal prejudicial interests? No. Item 3, minutes of the last meeting held on Thursday, the 15th of July. For accuracy, page 1, page 2, page 3. Can I have a proposal that they're accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any comments on the last minutes?
Yes,
Jim?
please, Chairman. Perhaps I can ask Martin. Item 11, where we resolve to have an interim report back to this meeting. It's not on the agenda, and I wondered why.
Martin, can you comment?
Sorry, Duke. When you say item 11, item on what? Sorry.
On the minutes
Work plan.
of the last meeting.
I think
apologies.
it's item 11 work plan.
Yes. Sorry, the work plan is on this agenda, isn't it? Yes.
Not the work plan, the interim report. And the work plan isn't until January, but it does say September in the agenda.
Apologies. I'm a little bit lost because I wasn't at the end of the last meeting. I had the. Are we saying? Sorry. Is the request? Sorry, June. That there would be a half-yearly review on the work plan to come back. Is that the intention?
No, there was one to come to today's meeting, an interim report on the survey carried out online.
Apologies, you'll have to leave it with me. My understanding that wouldn't be ready until the end of the year. Obviously, I'd left before the end of the last meeting, but that wouldn't be ready until the end of the year, and therefore it was intention to come back under the work programme early in the new year. Apologies if that wasn't said last time, but obviously I'd left before we got to that item on the agenda, I believe.
But we were going to have an interim on the online survey, what questions were asked and what were the results of the survey.
If you leave it with me, I'll double check, but my understanding that wouldn't be available till the end of the year, but I will double check. Apologies for that. If it was indicated it would come back this meeting, it's obviously not here, but if you leave that with me, I will double check after the meeting.
Okay, thanks, Martin.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I got on item 10, traffic calming. I sent out an email to all cabinet members asking them if they got any comments on the work plan. I received one back, Martin, from Mark Thomas, and Mark is quite happy with the work plan, but he would like to, if possible, to know the conclusion of speed humps and traffic calming, so that if there are any recommendations, they could be agreed and possibly implemented for the start of the new community budget scheme for May 2022.
Yeah, I've got no problem in that, Chair. I think perhaps we can confirm which date you'd like that to come, either now or when we get onto the work plan later.
Yeah, if we can take that onto the work plan, and perhaps if we, I think Mark wants to know reasonably early enough so that he can put it into the scheme for the budget for 2022.
That shouldn't be a problem. My understanding, well, that would need to be probably no later than, I would either need to come in December or January. So when we get to the work plan, we'd have to reorder the work plan for the items you have listed for those dates.
Yeah. Okay. We go on to agenda item number 4, Swansea-based City Deals Skills and Talent Programme business case. Martin, are you taking this?
Yeah, I am, Chair. Obviously, it's a pretty lengthy report, or certainly a lengthy appendices. If I just give a little bit of context as to how it's come about and what we think are the key aspects of it. I would imagine this is as much a prompt for the committee to decide how you would like us to review some of the activities contained within the City Deal Talent and Skills Programme, and particularly how you would like us to develop policies in relation to Swansea specifically. So, but it seemed to be hopefully a useful starting point to just give you the overall context as to where we are and why we might be looking at, it's under the heading of talent and skills, but it's effectively the skills agenda, which, won't just be affecting Swansea Council. It will affect obviously all employers within Swansea and the South West Wales region. So as part of the City Deal programme, one of the strands is the regional project under talent and skills. That's being delivered through the Regional Learning and Skills Partnership, to which the council is attendees and representatives on. The business case, the way in which the regional City Deal projects work, the business case that is developed collectively then needs to be approved by each of the constituent local authorities. And it has been approved by Swansea Council, as it has by the other 3 authorities, and has subsequently been approved by the Regional Joint Committee and submitted to Welsh and UK Government. Effectively, the allocation of funding within the City Deal programme for this strand is £10 million, and you'll see the sort of phasing of that within the report, and you'll also note within the detail of the appendices the headings as to where that's going to be targeted. Section 3 in the report outlines the phasing of the programme, and particularly the reference to the gap analysis to identify where is the greatest benefit and need of intervention. And there are 5 sectors outlined in that, which replicate the sectors that are covered under the RLSP, and that is construction, digital, energy, health and well-being, and smart manufacturing. Now we are seeing, and you'll no doubt have seen on local news, etc., a big shift in the dynamics of employment within not just Swansea but elsewhere, where some some of the traditional skills where there are shortages remain a problem. But what we are now seeing, and all employers are seeing, is a big shift in skills shortages in areas where perhaps traditionally there hasn't been such a problem. And that's something that's going to be picked up by the RLSP to identify whether or not there are further interventions that need to be done. And again, I'd very much welcome the committee's views about whether there are further interventions from a council point of view that we think we can take. And I'll refer to sort of a range of sectors you'll have seen on the news in relation to drivers, not just HGV drivers, but drivers of all levels, but also difficulty in recruiting, a lot of frontline core staff, including labourers and semi-skilled staff. So it's in all areas and in all sectors, we're now starting to see a bit of a challenge. It's quite difficult to understand as to what's causing that. One suggestion is that it's potentially linked to furlough, and the end of the furlough will release a large amount of people perhaps into the workplace. But there is certainly a shortage of applicants in most sectors and most jobs that we are now looking for. And as a council employer, we are seeing that in many of our areas, certainly within the Police Directorate. The report in section 3.5 just outlines some of the principal reasons as to why we need to be undertaking these activities. And that sort of describes the sort of need to effectively uplift GVA, to provide the skills gaps that currently are present. Effectively, the need that because the region suffers from low GVA and that lack of well-paid job opportunities, and a lack of skill shortage, really, and a lack of skills at a higher level, a large proportion of individuals with no qualifications, and generally a trend of low skill and low paid, and unstable employment. And the underlying principles of the talent and skills strand haven't changed regardless of the current economic position. Those things still need to be addressed, but the interventions may well spread wider than what's currently within the original business case. So that's really all I was going to say by way of an introduction, Chair. Obviously, we're quite happy to take any comments. I'm quite happy for us to deal with any specific questions you have today, but also more than happy to identify particular work strands that the PDC would like to see come back to this committee in terms of council policy development. So I guess what this gives you is the overarching framework as to what's currently in place, but quite clearly a lot of the detailed interventions sit below this, and we'd very much welcome the opportunity to see which policy areas you would like us to look to bring back to you for you to help us develop. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Martin. Open to questions. June, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can I congratulate Martin and the staff for such a detailed report? There's a lot in it for us to take in, but I'd welcome Martin's views on perhaps something for a future work programme, if we could look at developing local skills and on recruitment. Is that something we could consider as a PDC?
Shall I come back on that, Chair? Yeah. Thanks, Councillor. The reality is, yes, of course. Can I just check, because there could be two angles there, but which overlap, but could be, I guess, subtly different. We are a major employer in the area, so there's an opportunity for us to look at how we as an employer would be looking to develop our own skills and the job opportunities to make Swansea Council an employer of choice. But there's also the work that we do through a range of activities with partners. So you'll no doubt be aware, sort of the Workways programme, and the fact that the council is, developing and has for many years had its Beyond Bricks and Mortar initiative. More recently, through the Economic Recovery Plan, there's a number of targeted interventions in relation to that. Workways Plus, Kickstart for the communities, etc., Communities for Work. So there's a range of activities. I'd be more than happy to sort of ask colleagues to bring a detailed report back on that wider agenda, identifying the opportunities, identifying the numbers that we're bringing back into employment, and perhaps touch on what I mentioned earlier, that where do we think there may be a need to look at additional areas for intervention, and where the council policies, because that's what the committee is all about, where can the council develop its policies to assist in that regard? So I'd be more than happy to bring a detailed piece of work back on that, Chair, if the committee agrees.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'd be grateful if that could be done, Chair.
There we are. If put that in the minutes, Sam, please. Mike White, you got a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I got a couple of points, and to follow on what June said, yes, a very interesting document, very lengthy, but very, very interesting reading. In regards to page 11, Martin, school engagement, very keen to see how we can ensure that schools are made aware. If you're going to promote this policy, this project, and how we sort of take it into schools through actually the careers, so that at least then that there's the opportunity for children to have it within their schools to know exactly what's going on within the area of employment that we're trying to promote through the City Deal project. So I'd be grateful if you could look at that and perhaps build something in with that. Secondly, as well, you mentioned 2 centres of excellence. Seeing the councils that are involved is quite a radius of area, really, within the partners. Where would the centres of excellence be based? As I say, because obviously there's this is quite a big project that we're taking on, and the City Deal, and of course the amounts of money involved as well. If you could have some information on that. And then on page 93, there's mentions about consultants. Now, can we assure that the funds that are in, and quite substantial amounts of money, aren't going to be swallowed up by consultants' fees. I think we need some assurances on that, Martin.
Thank you, Mike.
Should I come back? I can probably answer two of the three, Councillor. On the first one, on the schools link, absolutely. And look, just from a personal background and experience of developing apprenticeship schemes in the councils for many years, pretty successfully, I think. I've always had a view that I'm not sure that the way in which the curriculum was structured, and this is my personal view, not the view of the council, but the way in which the curriculum was structured necessarily promoted the sorts of roles where there are massive skill shortages at the moment. So whilst schools are obviously excellent in terms of the academic route, perhaps, and I think it is picking up now as well, I think perhaps there were greater opportunities in terms of some of the vocational training areas that perhaps weren't fully explored, and it was perhaps a little bit ad hoc depending on how the individual schools approach that. I'm pleased to say that I think there's been a big shift in that over the last few years. The one benefit of the Talent and Skills programme being channeled through the Regional Learning and Skills Partnership is within that partnership, there are representatives from the education sector, from the post-16 sector. So Helen Morgan-Rees, our Director of Education, sits on that forum, and I sit on that forum representing the Regional Economic Development Directors. So I do think there's a very good joined-up way of identifying where those opportunities arise. And of course, the RLSP is run by the private sector. And therefore they're able to identify, effectively what do they need coming out from the schools to enable them to mould them into the people who can receive those jobs going forward. So I think that's been a big shift, and I won't pretend to go into any detail on the new curriculum, but my understanding from the presentations we had at the RLSP is that the alignment of the new curriculum should assist in that regard. But that's probably straying off my area of knowledge and much more into the education field. On the centres of excellence, I don't know where they are located. I don't believe that's been decided, but I take your point on board, and we'd certainly hope that they were, at least one of them was located close to Swansea, but I will pick that point up and take that forward. And finally, on the question of consultants, I completely agree. The reality is the way in which the funding is structured, whilst there is an element of resource to manage the programme, because it's a big programme to arrange, the bulk of the funding is going into those training opportunities. There may well be a reference to consultants. I'm not sure of the exact finances allocated to that, but I would certainly expect it to be a very small proportion, Councillor. The bulk of the funding is going into those training opportunities, and that's where the employers would want to see it being spent anyway.
Okay, but as I said, I think it's just a matter of caution, and that we should be really looking at as the PDC. That we are getting the actual value for money and the benefits for the students.
Okay. Any further questions?
Yeah, can I come back, Chairman? And I'm, like Martin, straying into the education field. Perhaps we should bring back technical colleges and tech schools that we used to have years ago, where we had people trained in different skills. Sorry, I know I'm straying.
Yeah. Thanks, June. Thanks, Chair. No, I'm not really in a position to answer that, but what I can do, I can speak to our education director and provide perhaps a follow-on written update, or if we come back to discuss the more detailed skills agenda that we talked about at the start of the meeting, perhaps I can ask an education colleague to join us. I don't want to stray into the education PDC discussions either, but if it's appropriate, I'm sure we can try and make sure we link the two together. What I should have said is the colleges, post-16 colleges, are included in the RLSP. So obviously we get the post-16 aspect. I guess we all would just want to be assured that we have the the school-aged curriculum aligned to what is required at post-16. So I think we're all saying the same thing, but as I said, I won't try and second-guess education colleagues.
Okay, that was for information only, but bearing in mind what June and Mike has asked for, could we have a report back more specific on what June and Mike has asked for at a later date?
Of course, Chair. Could I just suggest, because I know we often stray into, obviously this one is an unusual example because the report has been finalised and agreed. So if it's okay with the committee, what we'll try and do is we'll structure that in a way that sets out, I guess, what we are already currently doing that's dictated by it, but where we'll also set out where we believe there are areas for further policy intervention and options for that, so the committee can sort of identify if they believe any of those areas are things that we should explore. So I'd be happy to sort of structure it on that basis.
Okay. Thank you. On to item agenda 5, the Economy, Environment and Infrastructure PDC Work Plan for 2020-2022. Sam?
Thank you, Chair. You notice that there are a few additional items that we've populated into the plan. Let me just get hold of it. Bear with me. Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, so our next meeting on the 21st of October, we've got the Economic Recovery Plan and High Street Regeneration coming in. So 2 items there may need longer than an hour, Chair. 18th of November, we've got Grey Fleet and Green Fleet policy coming back in. You recall that we had updates on those, I believe it was last year. 16th of December, street lighting policy and the tree policy. The tree policy is an additional item, I think, that Martin suggested to yourself. So I'm not sure whether members will have any questions in relation to that item in particular. And then we're going on to 16th of December as well. Sorry, there's 3 items there. Climate change strategy. This was something that we picked up at the last committee meeting. So that December meeting is most probably going to be an hour and a half. I will amend the meeting request in accordance with that. We've got the biodiversity management of open space coming in January, and more homes housing decarbonisation scheduled for March. I'm not sure whether members, if there's anything we've missed from that. We've tried to work through the last minutes and pick everything up. Does anybody have any comments?
Yes,
Martin?
Chair. Sorry. Go on, Martin.
I'll leave Councillor Burton. She'll go first.
I just wondered where we can fit in the ones that we've agreed today, because we don't want them to go to the end of the year. We want them to come earlier on.
Agreed.
That was going to be my point as well, Chair, is that we've got the speed humps and traffic calming, and we've just agreed that you'd like us to bring back a more detailed paper on skills. So personally speaking, I think if you've got 2 items on an agenda, although today's been relatively quicker, interestingly with a longer report, but generally when we have 2 items on an agenda, we will struggle to get through those in the hour to an hour and a half. So I think it'd be difficult to add anything unless you wanted to move something from the October or November or December session and substitute it with the items that we've talked about today. The one point I would make is if you wanted to deal with the traffic calming and speed hump item prior to budget setting, which was as requested by Councillor Mark Thomas, then in reality the latest we should be probably bringing that would be December session. So I guess something will have to move around. It depends how how you feel about the ordering of priorities that are currently listed.
Well, going on what the cabinet members' wishes, Martin, I would like to get that in as early as possible so that he's got enough time and the officers to put it into the scheme. I know it'll be part of your work as well. Under place.
That's okay, Chair. I'll make a suggestion clearly for the committee to decide, but the items that we've got next month, which are the Economic Recovery Plan and High Street Regeneration, they are both really for, I guess, for information to update you on the progress since it came last time. They're not, in my opinion, as time critical. You know, given that you've had a bite of the cherry today in terms of the skills agenda, if you wanted to, we could certainly look to bring back the more detailed report on the skills agenda next month, if you would prefer that, and then that one can be done and finished, and then we can look to slot in the Economic Recovery and High Street one slightly later in the year, if that suits. And what I can try and do is we've got on the December session street lighting and tree policy. I do think it's important that the tree policy does come to the PDC because it is a brand new policy and we haven't really got it. So but perhaps we could move the street lighting one and bring the traffic calming one to the December session, if that works. But look, it can be fluid and we can move these things around. As long as we agree what you want to come next month, we can subsequently change the programme as you see fit.
Okay. June?
Yeah, I agree with Martin. Martin, how important are the grey fleet and green fleet policies? Can they be moved further down the line?
They can, Councillor. The reality is we are working on them at the moment. If just to remind the committee that what we are intending to, we already have a green fleet policy, so it's updating the green fleet policy. We don't have a grey fleet policy and we don't have a street lighting policy. So I think it's not holding us up. I wouldn't be, if I thought by delaying it, it would give us a problem that we can't action what we need to be doing, then I'd be more than happy to let you know. We are intending to take an updated climate change report back to Cabinet. It was due to be October, but I think that's going to be now November. So probably it might be a lot and we might need to extend the session a little bit more. But I am wondering whether we are better bringing the climate change policy at the same time as the underpinning grey fleet, green fleet and street lighting. Because if you recall, we broke it down into little bits to make it more manageable, but you've now asked for us to bring the overall strategy back, which is fine. So if you wanted to amalgamate the climate change and biodiversity strategy into a single session, and we could do that in the December session, I'd be quite happy to do that, and that would free up a bit more time in November. And then in December we do tree policy and climate change. Then that would probably allow us to bring the traffic calming one possibly in November, which would actually work a little bit better from the timescales.
Okay.
Chair, can I suggest you, Martin and Sam, get together and look at the work plan and come back with alterations rather than us do it here today?
Okay. Mike?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, in regards to the tree policy, I know the former PDC, whatever it was called, we did do a tree policy, a lot of work with that with Martin Bignell. So if it's of any help, plus Martin, that might be still a live document. But of course, moving forward and thinking of looking at when we've got new developments coming on board as well with big projects, in the housing developments, to give guidance to these developers on what we would expect. Perhaps that could be linked within the new policy.
Yeah, certainly, Councillor. There is a supplementary planning guidance on trees that's been through a consultation process and is likely to be going on to planning committee for approval. I believe next month or in November. Tom Evans within our planning team is arranging that, because the reality is, for supplementary planning guidance, the planning committee is the appropriate route rather than the policy development committee. We do have the previous access to the iteration that was done on the draft tree policy from, might have been a cabinet advisory committee, Mike, I believe. It was a couple of years ago.
There's a pack, yeah.
Yeah. So what we'll be doing is we'll separate out the legislative requirement on tree management linked to developments, and that will sit within the planning supplementary guidance. The wider council tree policy is very much to do with our land, our trees, how we maintain them, why we would trim them or cut them down, and what we want to do about increasing the tree cover and identifying suitable sites for us to develop additional trees or even reforestation. And so that goes a lot further than what the original piece of work would have done, but that original piece of work will be part of this new policy that's due to come forward.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay. No other questions? I suggest Martin, I'll arrange with Sam. June, would you like to be on this invite to this meeting so we could discuss the work plan? You're on mute, June. Sorry.
I should know that by now. I'm happy for the three of you to go ahead, but if I can make a meeting, I'd be happy to attend.
Okay, we'll send you an invite, and if you can attend, all the better. Okay, is there any other business? No?
Sorry, Chair, just on that, depending on when we might arrange the meeting, I'm just conscious that the deadline for reports for our next meeting in October will be a couple of weeks from today. Can I just confirm which items, because I don't think we can wait for that planning meeting for the wider work programme to confirm that. Do you want us to bring the reports as they are on the current forward look, or would you prefer we substitute the item on skills that we talked about earlier, just so I can clarify that and send the officers off to get that report ready?
Okay.
Yeah, Chair,
feelings?
that's why I suggested you, Martin, and Sam get together to look at this and put them in the order that we want, and also that the department are able to bring forward reports on. So if you can have that meeting very early so that you can decide that.
Martin?
That's fine, Chair. We probably need to meet next week to give us enough time to turn the reports around, if that's okay then.
Yeah, okay. Okie dokie. If there's no other thing to discuss, declare the meeting closed. And thank you everybody for attending and for all the hard work they put into that report. Thank you. Thanks, Sam.
Enjoy the rest of your holiday, Chair.
Thank you, June. See you Monday.
Okay, bye.
Bye.